What have you to say?
Well, one of my questions was about the Gulf War, well, the situation in the Gulf, because I've lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, and the effects of the war in the 1990s are still felt then. And do you think it's likely that the situation now will begin in war again? And if so,
why should it erupt into a war? This is the question.
I think that the situation
Who
is...
does Iraq hurt so much that they have to go on killing Iraqi people and destroy Iraqi economy? That is the question. You must first determine the culprit, who it is. There are so many countries of the world which, we do not pay the least attention to United Nations decisions. There are 42 such decisions which Israel has refused to accept. Repeatedly, the full House of the United Nations have condemned Israeli obstruction to the passage of these decisions to be implemented. But what happens? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. But here is something happening somewhere which does not hurt American interests at all. The case they build against Iraq is always proved to be false after the destruction is over. The long gun, you see, you remember? The long gun which could fire across to the American continent and all that. This was all entirely built up with the help of the British government, who knew what was happening. They earned money out of that by exporting the barrels, etc. But they knew this is just a story, not a story, but a madman's fancy to build such a thing, while the most important components were still withheld by the British, which could have worked, if at all, in building such a gun. But why could not these advanced nations build their guns themselves to counter Iraq? They were supplying them some parts, some iron barrels, and they knew all the know-how how to build the barrels, but the Iraqis could not even build the barrels. While there was so much of sophisticated mechanism which had to be known and which was kept or withheld by the advanced nations. So instead of making a hue and cry against a barrel which is being created, which will create a gun at last, which will bombard America or Israel, why did they not make counter invasion of Iraq by creating such guns and providing Israel with those guns? So it was entirely a game, an exercise in deceiving people. And after it was over, then I have seen programs on the British television. They were all laughing at it, laughing at the whole idea of the gun being produced and it's being so sinister in its effects. So they do it, and they are again doing things that Iraq is doing this and that. How long should a country suffer for things which are unjustly imposed on it by the United Nations, which has no right to interfere with the internal affairs of people, things? If it had gone wrong, you catch him while it went wrong. You had every ability to punish it, but only when it went wrong, not anticipating the possibilities of a growing power, which, if you accept all of it, still is not a threat to the peace of anything, a threat to the peace of any country. Iraq, if given full time to develop, can hardly create an atomic bomb, while all the atomic potential of the world will be directed against Iraq. Before it had time to trigger it off, entire Iraq could be wiped out 100 times before this time, before this may happen. In fact, the whole world can be destroyed hundreds of times over if the atomic potential of the world powers is utilized to do this. Now, in the same general area of Iraq, Israel, etc., Israel has that potential, and it has been begging to be able to destroy the entire atomic potential of Russia. And Iraq is not, if it can produce, is not permitted to produce a single weapon. All this is again a fake thing. The fact is that they have noticed that in the middle of the Muslim world there is a country which has potential strength to grow big. And if it grows big, ultimately it may not be possible, may not remain possible for Israel to do whatever she likes. This is the only objective. They don't want to have it happen. To remove Saddam is no problem. But the problem is that he may be removed. He may die. This is what worries them. I think they are taking full care of his health as well. Saddam Hussein is a boon to the Americans and the Jewish people. With a special type of head, which has to be examined, of course. He has been doing things against the interests of his own country, while if he had kept quiet, he could have go on growing from strength to strength, and nobody could have any excuse to interfere. So that is why I say, I beg pardon from Mr. Saddam Hussein, that he also has to be have his head examined because he's moving against the interest of his own country. And the Western powers, particularly America, are enjoying it thoroughly. Right?
Yes.
Yes.